So hi everyone, thank you for being here today. I hope you guys have been enjoying the presentation so far. So I come from an Iraqi Muslim background, and the focus of my research has been about urban retrofitting. So as we've all been aware by now, hopefully, population growth is adding pressure to our environments, to our infrastructure, and to the overall quality of life. Population growth has led to unsustainable expansion and development around the city. And as a result of that, we're having a hard time trying to accommodate that growth. So how can we accommodate the growth of our city? I'm going to read this verse from my holy book. I'm going to read it in Arabic, and then I'll explain to you how I find it relevant to my proposal. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. So this verse is basically explaining how the fact that as long as we allow it to, corruption is going to happen. And so how do we stop and think about the way that we've been planning over the years? Although growth is inevitable, unsustainable development can change. And so this is the point where realizing neglected urban space and finding it and giving it its function can shift the way that we're developing our cities. So unrealized urban space, what do I mean by that? I'm referring in this particular research to leftover spaces along transport corridors. And so this is my question. What opportunities are there for landscape architects to design within Auckland's existing urban transport corridors to better support biological communities? And by biological communities, I'm also referring to humans. So basically any living thing. How can we use these leftover spaces to support these biological communities? So the presentation is going to be split up into 3 sections. First, my proposal, then my strategy, and my application. So I'll start with the proposal. So hopefully by now you've gotten a little bit of an idea of what I'm focusing my study on. And so I'll go through the questions that I've zoomed in a little bit further on in order to focus my research a bit more. So what additional uses could marginal urban spaces within transport corridors have to support a growing population? Can the design of marginal spaces along transport corridors reduce pressure on the environment and the urban infrastructure? Can design for the marginal spaces along transport corridors provide opportunities for social spaces and public accessibility? And how can the design of public spaces how can the design, of public transport stations linked to marginal spaces improve the public's perception of public transport? And finally, last but not least, how can we use these spaces to support Auckland's biodiversity? So here's my site, where the big arrow is pointing. It's Westfield Station and the Mangere Inlet. So this is Mangere Inlet, and this is Westfield Station. Westfield Station is located at the western end of Portage Road, and it's where the southern and eastern lines of the rail converge. So this site marks the narrowest point in the Auckland Isthmus, basically. And it's got both pre-European and European historic significance because it was used as a portage site for Maori. They beached their wakas there and dragged them along across from one side of the ocean to the other to avoid traveling along Cape, North Cape, sorry. The interesting thing about this site, and I chose it because I wanted to choose one little space or one space in particular to use as a case study that can be repeated along to anywhere else in the city where such a space is found. The interesting thing about it is that when the station was opened in 1904, it gave access to a shallow bay on Manukau Harbor, which became a popular picnic spot. The other interesting thing is during the Second World War, this green bit here, there was plans to create a canal between the two sides of the harbors, but that was left undeveloped or half developed. So what exists now is just a little bit of greenery and just a little bit of a canal that's not finished, but it doesn't have access to it, and a lot of people don't know about it. So this is the entrance to the station. As you can see, it looks very uninviting, and you can barely notice that there's a train station at the end of the road. So the big photo up at the top is a photo of Mangere Inlet. So that's the view that's in the site. The very left is the Manukau Harbor, and then in the center is the Onehunga Harbor. And then the last photo is the photo of water treatment plant. So all of these landmarks, I guess, fall within the bigger context of my site. Another thing is that transport. We've got air and land transport. So Auckland Airport in Mangere and Otahuhu Interchange, which is going to be a big interchange, rail and bus, connecting basically those communities to anywhere around the city. And finally, the mountains. You've got Sturgis Park right here. You've got Motukarua, Hamlin's Hill Park, which is a regional park, but it is, I consider it an unrealized public space because the only way a lot of people notice it is through passing through the motorway. And so its access is very limited. You've also got Mangere Mountain on the other side of the inlet. You've got Mount Richmond Domain, and you've got Mount Smart and Wakaraka Park. So how do I plan to answer these questions in this particular site? Because the vision that I have is to find functions to those leftover spaces in this city. I developed a site selection criteria. And so the criteria was to find, what landmarks are available within that site and what potential connections can be found along that site. And what history does it have, and what boundaries are there that can be removed to open up opportunities for development. And this inlet, following industrial development, meatworks and other factories discharged a lot of untreated waste into it, and that led to a detrimental effect on the ecology of the inlet, resulting in a contaminated inlet, and in just an overall unattractive space. So to answer my questions, I've set out the following objectives. I want to mitigate further environmental damage. I want to maintain healthy water and air quality. I want to provide existing future communities with a network of quality open spaces. I want to create an undisturbed habitat for wildlife where the opportunity for increasing Auckland's biodiversity can be realized. And finally, I want to educate the community and the society about the significance of these spaces. Another quote from my holy book says, يا بني آدم خذوا زينتكم عند كل مسجد وكلوا واشربوا ولا تسرفوا إنه لا يحب المسرفين. And the way that this quote relates to, I guess, the strategy that I'm following is it's saying, live life the way that you want to be, living, but don't be wasting the resources that you're given. So unsustainable development is wasting, existing resources that we have. So how can we find functions for these sites so that we're not exploiting our resources? I've decided to use the triple bottom line of sustainability, which looks at finding a balance between the three of those elements: people, profit, and planet. And then I went and looked at the site and tried to find what connections already exist and what potential connections can create more opportunities for engagement between different communities, for accessibility to existing urban spaces and transport hubs. How can the design of this space serve a variety of cultures? How can I have areas where there's a big space for annual events? Can there be a site, an area of the site that can be directed in a certain way to refer to a certain culture? Can we bring water into the design to refer to global values? So in these little photos here, you're looking at a historic photo of what the site used to look like in 1940. And I want you to notice how the edge of the coast has been transformed over time, and also how the mangrove growth has been so excessive over the years. So I'm going to take you on the journey of an existing pathway that exists within the site. So this journey is through Waikaraka Cycleway, which is a cycleway that's already existing on the eastern end of the inlet, connecting Mangere Bridge to the eastern end of my site. So this is Onehunga Yacht Club. It's a historic building that's looking towards the harbor. This little space reminds me a lot of Silo Park before it got developed. So all the space underneath the bridge has the potential to become activated to serve some sort of a certain function for the surrounding communities. So imagine if this space had a certain theme around it and provided some sort of a function other than just, a cycleway. This is Waikaraka Cemetery, which is near Waikaraka Park. And that's looking towards the eastern end of my site. That's the bridge. And the following are, I guess, concepts of how a small site can be transformed to serve the community in a variety of ways. How a small site can change through very small interventions. So how do I plan to achieve this in my particular site? One thing that I concluded through my literature review and my case studies is that if I want a space to be successfully designed, there are three things that I want to focus on: diversity, accessibility, and resilience. How can the space be designed in a way to serve the multiple communities and cultures available within the surroundings and the boundaries of my site? And how can accessibility open up opportunities for connecting those communities to public hubs, public transport hubs, and to their local businesses and to their schools? And how can the design of the space allow it for, allow it to be ready for change, basically? How can it be sustained? I believe that culture has a significance on all those three parts of my triple bottom line of sustainability. So culture has an effect on how economy, society, and ecology work. What makes a space great is the accessibility to the surrounding areas around it. So I went into my site and I highlighted, or I looked into what attractions are available within walking distance of that site. And as you can see, the shortest distance is 6 minutes, which is from Portage Road, from the entrance of the station, to Great South Road. So I thought, what if we can half all these time, distance of travel? So I created small but mighty interventions that can promote the economic sustainability, connect the communities, and value the ecologies of the site. The first intervention I found to have value is a 13-kilometer pathway along Mangere Inlet. Now, when I say 13 kilometers, that's including the existing pathway that I showed you, which is from Mangere Bridge on the other side of the harbor, all the way down to right here, which is where that photo of the bridge was. So my idea is to basically pull that pathway back all the way to the Otahuhu interchange, which is going to be right here, and continuing it on along the coast to connect the Otahuhu and Mangere communities. And the next intervention was to create a connection between the Otahuhu interchange through the canal reserve that I talked to you about, which is the one that was supposed to be developed after the Second World War, and create a connection between this side of the coast to the western edge of the entrance of this space. So the center of the space here, all of this space here is actually the marshalling yards. So they're used as storage for main freight. So it's all shipping containers. The third intervention was a connection between the coastal path to the park, the nearest park, which is Sturgis Hill Park, and to Great South Road. The fourth is creating a stormwater treatment train, which is, the aim for it is to basically clear out the water before it reaches our coast. And the purple spaces that are highlighted are leftover spaces that I've found along the train tracks and along the marshalling yards that currently are just grass, but they have the potential to become activated public spaces for the surrounding communities. And the sixth idea was to use the Pikes Point Park, which was used as like a leisure aviation park, but it currently serves no function. You know, it's a car park basically. It's a massive car park, and so I'm proposing to transform it into community space. So what if these interventions could serve a variety of functions? What if it can be divided, or what if it can include you know, different functions within it? Can it be a fitness space? Can there be social spaces? You know, can we you know, take the idea of what Christchurch did with the shipping containers and transform them into, you know, a mall? Can there be play spaces for the children in that community? Can it be an educational space where brain development can be obvious for the community? You know, can we explain to the community and to the society how such interventions can you know, lead to us sustaining our own generations and the generations to follow us? And the way to do that is to find balance. إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. We created everything in proportion and measure. And so to find a balance, we need to encourage the use of public transport by facilitating access through walking and cycling. We need to alleviate the strain on our infrastructure by reducing the dependence on the private vehicle. We need to open up economic opportunities to support local businesses, to cut down travel distances. So all of these objectives are looking at the sort of economic aspect of my triple bottom line. And these are looking at the ecological aspect of it. So how can we allow for growth to happen alongside preserving our natural environment? And how can we allow for an increased density without compromising the quality of life by utilizing previously neglected urban spaces? And how can we use low-impact design to alleviate environmental damage? And finally, this is the social aspect. And this talks about how we can, you know, provide people with quality open spaces that they can actually identify themselves with and feel proud of. How can we contribute towards better connected neighborhoods to increase opportunities for engagement? And how can we connect people to their jobs, shops, schools, and parks through an attractive journey? So how can we transform the experience of public transport so that it's a positive experience? How do we transform it so that you're not just passing from point A to point B? What if the whole journey is an experience? So I guess the next steps for me is to dive in deeper into the details of those interventions and to find, you know, prioritize, I guess, which intervention to start with first. Urbanism works when it creates a journey as desirable as the destination. So this is my bigger goal. And reached the end of my presentation. Thank you. Which one?
Thank you, Zara. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, who wants to kick off the audience?
Well, I just want to thank you as, I suppose, on behalf of the Tēnō Rangatira, that's the people of the land. And really acknowledge your as one coming to this land through the Treaty of Waitangi is Tangatatiti. It's a person of the land, which you are, coming here and proposing that, which is so enriching, and yet, whilst being respectful of the tapu of that strip. When I say the tapu, the sacredness of that. Why? Because that's where Tainui first hauled their waka. Right over there. And the very early inhabitants of this place. So that, in fact, I saw on your early 1940 photo, you could see where the boats had been dragged. And wow.
Yeah.
So up to 1940, it was still being used to go from the Waitemata to the Manukau. And so I just really found that touching. I've proposed a sculpture park with Philippe Tohi, a fairly credible sculptural artist. And it's in the Auckland City Unitary Plan at the moment as part of the Mangere Gateway project. So again, I found that there's tautoko relate to your context directly on this piece of whenua, this land. So have looked at the same contentions and opportunities in the last 3 years, and I would like to just add that it was accepted by Auckland City to go into the unitary plan after they spent $20,000 on a feasibility report, all that. So you will see that. So I found your ideas, your sensitivity to the fringe, and the metric that you were applying. I just questioned you kept saying this triple bottom line. So you're a realist, dealing with real issues, realities, economics, political, throwing that up there. And I found myself writing a note here on your bit of paper, about sustainability. I think sometimes what you want to do and what you have to do in order to achieve a level of sustainability is the challenge, contention. And I liked the diagrammatic way that you showed your metric. You applied your idea to how you would do that, and I found that very clear, and showing the different levels, the different types of interventions. I could see it. I could kind of grab that in there, and so I found that very good.
Thank you very much.
Kia ora.
Okay. So just wanted to be clear. So this project, so do you have to provide, is that your master plan? Is that your finished plan, or is this more of a literature project?
So the green areas that that you can see right here are basically the leftover spaces that I've mapped out on the site. So I haven't done any design interventions per se. I haven't done any detailed plans yet. That will be the next stage for me.
Maybe we should be clear on that.
Can you
this
just
is
tell me?
the third workshop, so this is more about the initial design moves after developing a methodology. So there is no sort of fundamental master plan or detailed design at this point.
Okay. It's basically looking for opportunities.
Okay, cool, right.
Yeah.
So that's where you are in your process.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, with that said, what else I got here? Okay, so just wanted to say, when you're saying, because you say access and that's connection in a sense, and you say you've done native planting. So just want to make sure that when you do go to the next stage, you say that that's actually like an ecological corridor, and that's a different type of connection, because you say it's native planting, but it's a connection itself for the species. So just want to make sure you bring that through. I had some other questions went in around the final piece, which isn't here yet, which I'd love to see. I really like you. It's just culture is right the way through it, and I love that because it makes it just so hearty. I really like that. Just other random comments. So you've chosen gannets, which is interesting because to my knowledge, they're typically more in sort of Murawai, and they don't have much connection with this area. And I wondered whether it was in your interest to choose for your imagery, to choose something that's maybe a species that's actually in that site. Just a comment. Really helpful having the question there, because I could just look at it all the time. What else have we got here? Oh yeah, if you do change the map, and I know this isn't the final presentation, but make sure you put the north on it, because I'm constantly looking at our maps all the time at work, and I really rely on the north to orientate myself all the time. So when you swapped it around, I was like, okay, where am I?
And you verbalised those cultural connections, but I need to see them. Where's Maori?
Yeah.
You know, where were these other things you're kind of pointing to? I had to get my Google Maps out to keep
Sorry
up
about
with your, you know, so, which is, I knew in my head, but some of the finer ones I had to go to the maps to keep up with your kōrero. So just maybe draw out a cultural landscape, which you did speak to. Tautoko with, agree.
I'd like that too. Like I like that you said this is Mount Smartest, because you really kind of settled us into the space, so we can get that. You know, for the visual people, we can really see where we are. What else have I got here? Oh, just a tiny thing, and I only noticed it, and I'm guilty of it as well. Is I say my site, and I heard you say my site. You might want to say the site or our site, or something that's a little bit more like, since you've got all this cultural, you're really grabbing us with your arms here, use that in your words as well, because my site, then it becomes like, it feels like the defence starts coming on, and I'm guilty of that as well when I studied, so I just wanted to remind you of that.
Point. Thank you.
I think that's pretty much it from me.
Thank you.
I like your presentation because you really did your homework. So you really know the place, you really kind of all the culture, all the ambience there. I like also that you are dealing with these issues of the transport corridors and the perceptions of this marginalized space that suddenly you have around this space. So I think that maybe we're trying to kind of take or eat more than you can choose, like in the sense that suddenly you talk about how to allow population growth, and then I say okay, that's good, and then you talk about this journey, and you talk about this, you talk about the criteria for to define the leftover space. So I say okay, so what's the, and then you didn't show it. No, so I think you probably have to work a little bit more on there. So okay, which are these criteria, and then okay, and then you explain about your strategies, using the triple bottom line of sustainability, ecology, economy, society. And then sure, you talk about this the connection of people through this journey to the area, and so maybe I would say focus more on that and less on this idea of the growth, population growth, and not just because
Well, the bigger vision is to allow for population growth to happen sustainably. So sprawl is going to happen.
Sure.
So how do we allow it to happen, but at the same point, use the spaces that we have already existing within our urban space, urban city, to find functions for these, for the existing communities in these spaces. So how can these spaces be transformed to serve a certain function? So, for example, connecting people. So I guess the bigger image is to, use our existing resources rather than try to find new places to implement these ideas.
Yeah, but coming back to what Cesar was saying, touch these big picture things like annual national growth 50% occurs in Tamaki Makaurau. And then touch these things, drill down to here. What contextualize it, because you're showing us that map, and so contextualize that data to that. What do you call landscape architects? Call it a mesh block or whatever. Sorry, humble architecture.
Yeah, just picking up on that map you showed of 1940 and the map you showed, those two maps over top of each other, that shows that growth, right? You saw a lot of undeveloped land at this location. And so talk about that, translate it to this local context. And that might be just in that, communicating that, we now understand what that big national average means. to this local community.
Yeah, there we go into your metric proposal.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think the triple bottom line, that's an accountant term, isn't it? That's what my accountant tells me, my quarterly statements. Accountant, I don't know. I think is there one, hang on, let me get it up. I looked at this recently. I did a bid for the Tamaki redevelopment. I was invited for that housing in Point England, Panmure.
Yeah.
And we looked at that triple bottom line, but I found it too accountant driven. So we went and found an urban sustainable book, and it had that, but took it a lot deeper. I would like to see the other considerations rather than just this accountant model that you're throwing at us.
I don't look at it that way.
Okay.
You know, because if you can remember one of the quotes from my holy book that I've mentioned, you know, the fact that we created everything in measure and proportion. So in order to find that balance, I believe that that's what the triple bottom line of sustainability is trying to
yeah, but what I'm saying, what I found was that with a bit more behind it. Have a look. There is expansion on that. Yeah. In fact, trying to get rid of the accountant and actually take that into true sustainability rather than a quarterly statement. Yeah. There is so I tried to find it. There's graphs and things that go deeper. Yeah. I'd like to see just a little bit of that grafted to your contextualization.
Sure.
And actually, you know, that might be an interesting part of your work, actually taking that triple bottom line and critiquing it and saying, where does it fall short? You know, can you quantify community goodness?
Yeah, that was...
How good is our community right now?
Well, what I have tried to do, which is something that I'm still working on right now, is, you know, because I've added the cultural aspect to the triple bottom line. So I'm looking at ways, I guess, of comparing how different cultures are dealing with these issues, global issues. So I'm trying to compare, at the moment, Maori and Pakeha, you know, views on the environment, and refer them to my own values.
Pretty Waitangi.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to kind of find gaps and fill them wherever I find them. So it's interesting that because I've found that there are a lot of similarities between the values that we, you know, each of those different cultures hold, and one or you know a few of those values is the stewardship of the land. So there's another verse. I'm sorry, I keep bringing verses, but it's just really interesting because when I've started looking into how my values relate to the environment and to this proposal, I've found a lot of things that were really interesting. So one thing is that there's a verse that says basically that we created you from the land and made you vicegerents on it. So, and that's similarity with Maori, you know. We also hold, a sort of connection to the land and the sacredness of it.
And Auckland City have put that into the Te Aranga principles,
which is what
encapsulated in that, which you should look at. Also, the Unitary Plan has a $110 million Art Gateway project on tap coming in. It would have been interesting to see if you were to look at that, how yours would in some way extend from that. So that's in the Unitary Plan currently, and it's going right to that water, right up to that edge. So maybe just have a look at that.
So I guess this is kind of common made a little times. Your the scope, your aims are very ambitious, they're very large. You say those kind of refer to them. The question's quite, it's
focused.
Quite a focus. Yeah. So is that question still applicable?
Absolutely.
Or do you need to change the question to kind of to reflect your just what you just said a few minutes ago about
the values, different values
and shared cultural stuff. You can't. Design pretty. You can't do everything.
You
got to do one thing. So that's not that question that you just been talking about.
It is because it's highlighting first what it is, you know, what sites am I focusing my research on, and it's highlighting the fact that I'm you know, focusing on biological communities, and that's, you know, inclusive of a whole lot of you know, different communities. So every little thing.
It's not a biological community, and you can't. I suppose you could kind of stretch it to social idea,
Yeah.
but I mean, traditionally.
Well, how do you
traditionally
support
was-
quality of life for people? Wouldn't you look at the social aspects?
Yeah,
When you look at-
no, you would, but is that a biological community?
Yeah.
So it's basically everything.
Yeah.
It's just
Is
big.
that helpful?
I believe it is.
But is that helpful to you to help you answer a question? If the question is everything.
Well, everything
Because we-
exists within my site, so
No,
I need to
understand-
design so
no,
that
I
I.
understand that. No, I'm not questioning that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in terms of when we do a research project, we try, you know, we start off with everything, we start off with the world.
Yeah.
You know, we want to answer, we want to invent the world, we want to help the world, and then we use the research question to kind of narrow it down. You know, there's lots of things we can be doing.
Mhm.
Obviously, tons of things we can be doing, but we just make decisions as we go through our project
Mhm.
to do one thing, one little thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you could read this as being.
My question has changed quite a few times throughout. So there is a chance that it might, you know, change again.
Actually,
when I dive
the
in
question
deeper.
naturally changes, obviously, right at the last minute. You know,
Yeah.
right up to when you present the question changes,
Classical trap.
but it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You got to answer something.
Yeah.
How do you suggest I reword it so that it's more?
well,
Relevant.
what's the notice? Yeah. If you had to change the question, what was the number one thing you might what's the
Sorry, I
thing
couldn't
you-
hear you.
What's the number one thing that you're really interested in? About all the stuff you talked about today, about triple bottom line, about, you know, all that sort of stuff. Pick one thing. What was it?
2 things.
Start with 2.
See?
Narrow down.
Yeah,
2 is better than everything.
Single words. Go.
Oh, well, but they're inclusive of all.
Closer to the problem.
Okay. What are they?
One thing.
So, not exploiting the resources that are existing, and the stewardship of our existing resources.
Okay. Yep. So we all agree with that. Absolutely. That's good things. And now,
Conti.
what's the
Conti.
problem with what's the small problem in that?
What's a small problem within these?
Small problem within that larger problem.
The fragmentation of communities and
Yeah.
green spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And now what's the small problem within that?
And not having accessibility to these spaces.
Yeah.
Whether visual or physical
Yeah.
access.
And so within that problem, what's the small problem? Within not having access to green spaces.
Not
Cities
having
grow.
access to public transport.
Yeah, okay. Smaller.
I think we expanded.
we just got bigger then. Well, see what
Smaller
I'm-
than
but
that.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How about just
Yeah.
flick to the very beginning, sort of 2 or 3 slides in of your presentation, winding us right back. Right back. Yep, go a little bit further in. 1, 2, 3, next one. Oh, yeah, that's the one. You pointed these out at some point, and it's interesting because this area, Mangere and sort of moving down into South Auckland, has a particular stigma. There's lots of factories, lots of industry in that area.
Mm-hmm.
When people think of South Auckland, do they think of this?
No, they don't.
So, but that exists there.
Yeah.
How do we appreciate that? How do we kind of respect it? How do local communities see it and say, yeah, this is our place. This is the place that we live in, and we, you know, that's what we think of in this area.
And
Yeah.
we connect the research question to the site.
Mhm.
That gives us
And the
focus,
Mhm.
aims.
you talked about education, you know, maybe education isn't about, you know, teaching people this is what ecology is about, this is why you should do this. You
Mhm.
say, look at that. Imagine if
Yeah.
we could more of that.
It's interesting because what I've actually written down here is you're changing attitudes.
Yeah.
And so that could be a real key thing in it, like how do you change the attitudes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that this was a vibrant hub of commercial commerce and trade?
At some stage, yeah.
Yeah, so kumara were grown here
Yeah.
and distributed
The
all
big
over.
food bowl.
Yeah, it was a food bowl until Hobson burnt the 700 waka right there.
Yeah.
And basically just destroyed it at that point once he burnt them off and blocked their crossover where you were right there. So he basically cut that off and that trade. And then the oppression of the people fell and because of the tapu of the land, and then the colonials converted it to this essentially through a period of time.
Yeah.
So again, tautoko, what is being raised here and how to re-enliven, and it's very political. Auckland City have done a terrible job and they know it. And they keep throwing task force sustainability manuals, and I'm reading them. Pukitutu is one example where they want to put the sewage in the whenua, right there on your that far right hand one there, that Gallagher whānau who own that island. You know, so there's this total tapu doing bad things, and here you are coming along with positive ideas and metrics. All of this stuff that concerns you, we're interested in filtering it down and tell us the bits and apply it there, because that's what's needed.
Yeah.
All this, we've all got those sorts of the convictions. You're not telling us anything we really don't know, but bring it down into this, a metric, some principle that we can apply to enliven and bring this back to us, so we can walk on that foreshore there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are in a very good position because you have done a lot of work.
Wow.
Now I think it's the point to re-investigate and to rethink about what Matthew was saying. Okay, what's your point? That's one. If you think about one, it would be much worse if you come here and you say, you don't have enough. You have a lot. Now trim down. Take the dead skin out. And go focus a little bit.
Very good.
Cool.
Total.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Agreed.
you.
Thanks very much, Zara.
Thank you.